Hey, vegan cyclists. So I was a guest on Socal Cyclist Podcast a couple weeks ago, and it was a really awesome podcast. I had a lot of fun being a guest. He's had way more talented cyclists and bigger names in the industry than I, but I wanted to share this podcast with you if you hadn't seen it posted on Facebook or Instagram. And so it's a good one. It's a good little podcast. I talk about cycling. I talk about time management, a little bit about veganism. But yeah, it went really good. I'm just going to lay this podcast over the top of some cool riding, some cool full, length videos of cycling. We did film it ourselves. I filmed it on GoPro. He filmed his on GoPro. But getting those files together and synced up with the audio is just becoming no good. So you're just going to enjoy some cool riding and a great podcast. And I would love it if you tuned into more of his podcasts. He's a great guy. Definitely be on there again. And so I hope you enjoy. Guys, Vegan Cyclist. Yeah.
So, John, we have a great podcast today with a guy by the name of Tyler Pierce. Unfortunately, he's one of the few people I'm interviewing not from SoCal, doesn't even live in SoCal. Mm-hmm. He lives near Yosemite, but he's known to most people as the Vegan Cyclist. Mm-hmm. And it's not that he's trying to promote being a vegan per se. He's a bike racer first and foremost. He's known for having these YouTube videos that a lot of people are watching and following his advice, and he mixes in really cool music. And he does races that you and I have done. He's done Bakersfield. Mm-hmm. He races in NorCal. He's a Cat 2, and he's somebody that I think a lot of people, the point he was making was, I'm a regular guy. He's a regular guy. John, you're a bit of a superhero, but at the same time,
like, I fly through the air? Thanks.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. But he's definitely somebody who sees himself as an every person, and he's married and has a kid, and he's a Cat 2 and a fast one. He's got I don't know, something like a 350 watt, 20-minute power, which is pretty good.
Tell me that. That is really good.
And as recently, he's been taking down Strava KOMs like crazy. Bravo to Tyler, Vegan Cyclist. He is a strong man to do it. Maybe if he ever makes it down to SoCal, he has an open invitation to ride with us. He also does a great clothing partnership with LEL Clothing, and he's got his own vegan cyclist kits. Can't gleam enough about this guy. And little selfish, I'm kind of a fan of his. I've been watching his videos since before I even started the podcast. And when it's up on my YouTube feed, it's the first video I go to. So go ahead and listen in and enjoy episode 33 with Tyler Pierce.
Two greatest athletes in this year's Tour de France and in the world of cycling are battling out now a point of honour, a point of pride for the greatest finish in the Tour de France.
Phil, it's 48 seconds now. The gap is 48 seconds. Phil, this is the most incredible thing I think I've ever seen in my life.
He's lost the Tour de France. The crowd has realised it. Laurent Fignon by 8 seconds. Can you believe that? Laurent Fignon has lost the Tour and Greg LeMond has won it. This is the end of the Tour de France.
All right, Tyler, thanks so much for being on the podcast this week. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to be on your podcast, man.
Yeah, well, I've been following your videos on YouTube, which we'll get to later on in the podcast. But first, I got to ask you, have you ever made it down to Southern California to do either some bike racing or just riding around the area?
I have. SoCal is far. It's not, you don't think it's that far, but the Grapevine is, it's really far. So I went to Veg Fest in LA, and so I did a lot of riding when I was down there. I actually somehow snuck onto some huge Century ride that was going through maybe Malibu. I don't know where it was. I'm not really 100% of that area, but we I just like took a right, and I didn't have a helmet on.
Uh-oh.
And because I was just like, hey, babe, I'm going to go down to the store and get a Red Bull. Like, no big deal. And so I didn't have my helmet. I just had a sweatshirt on. And then all of a sudden I saw so many people riding, and I was like, well, what's going on here? So then I hooked on to a full-on Century and had this amazing day. But I think I've done 2 SoCal races.
Okay, like part of the SCNCA series races?
Yeah, so Bakersfield, that technically is SoCal. I don't, there's not a whole lot of people that race that, but I've done that. So
cool. Well, hey, anytime you are down here, you are more than welcome to reside with me and go on rides. And definitely do the races, because I grew up in Northern California, so I have a good basis to compare both Northern California and Southern California, and it's like 2 different worlds. Southern California has its crits, and Northern California has its road races and also crits, but it's a really interesting scene, which is part of the reason why I started the podcast in the first place. So let's kind of go back though, and how would you say most people know you? Is it from your YouTube videos, or racing your bike, or being vegan, or you're kind of a jack of all trades?
So for sure. So I would definitely be more known for YouTube. I would say my YouTube reaches like a global audience, which is just insane. And so as a cyclist, I'm not really that accomplished. And, I to be sitting in your podcast studio seat, if you will, there's been so many other people that have been sitting in this same chair that is just way better than I, right? I mean, obviously you just spoke to Phil Guyman, and I mean, some of the people that you have coming up and the people you've already done, I would say I'm a nobody. I'm just an average guy. But I think that's where I've sort of hit a chord on YouTube, is that I'm relatable, right? I'm not winning every single race. I get dropped. I'm human. I don't have a 7 watt per kilo, ratio, and so. I don't know. I mean, I definitely would be much more known on YouTube. Personally, with just the people that I know and ride with, they just know me as this goofy guy, Tyler, right? I'm not an activist towards veganism. I don't really talk about it a whole lot. So it's not like, oh, there's that vegan guy that's going to rip into me, or anything like that. But yeah, it's mostly YouTube, which again, the global reach is insane. I have people message me. I had this kid in like New Zealand or somewhere far away, and he drew a picture of me and then sent it to me. And I don't know, he was maybe 12 or something, and he sent this picture, like he drew this picture of me, and he was just like, "Hey, I really love your YouTube stuff, and you got me into cycling. I now ride on like some junior development team, and I'm pretty much all plant-based." And so just as some dude, me, Tyler, on the other side of the world, like, I can't believe that I'm reaching people and I'm making a difference, because I am nothing special. So that just blows me away.
Well, I would definitely say you and I are very similar in that respect. I mean, you're a vegan cyclist. I'm Socal Cyclist. We've both done kind of a lot of the same races. And I think part of the reach for people is that they can relate to people like us, because they can see us out on the road riding all the time. The fact that we just reach a bit of a different or larger audience is something. And one of the things I wanted to say is the way that in which you do your videos, it has this way of portraying you being very vulnerable, where a lot of times a lot of videos come across really polished. They only show people winning or posting up. But you show post-race, you show before the race when you're making coffee, you show that, your wife comes with you to races, and you guys are getting ice cream after the races, after a long Sunday. And that's something that, because I'm like most people. A lot of times at night, I'm laying in bed, I'm watching my YouTube feed, and my wife's laying next to me, and she's like, "Oh, what's this?" I mean, she hears the really cool music, and she's like checking it out, and then all of a sudden, you're talking about things that my wife can relate to, and she's seen those videos, and she's like, "Wow, this is really cool." And I think it speaks to a lot of people that you're kind of a racer's racer, so to speak, and that's something that people are really looking to find on YouTube, on Instagram, at their local races, and it's really cool. So, Tyler, have you, just for the record, so to speak, you race as a Cat 1 or Cat 2?
I'm a Cat 2.
Okay.
And I think I have maybe 1 point towards my Cat 1, my Cat 1 upgrade. Dude, so obviously California is stacked with competition. SoCal has some amazing racers. NorCal has just, on any given day, you could be racing against national champions. And it's just really difficult to do well when they bring their whole squad out. And you've got 40 or 50 of just some of the fastest guys in California. And then my strengths are definitely, they're not tailored towards crits, right? So I would say that I have a motor that is a really long, hard race is kind of fits me. But these crits, like I can't sprint very well. I don't have a great sprint. I don't have a time trial ability. I don't climb all that amazing. I'm just sort of an all-arounder. I could bring you one heck of a water bottle, right? Like that's what I can do. And so getting points, getting upgrades when you're not a sprinter is something that no one really talks about, but is very difficult to do, right? So when you're coming through the ranks, Cat 5, Cat 4, Cat 3, if you have any bit of fast twitch muscle, you can rack up those points quickly. But every point I have to do is usually by way of breakaway. So that's
one of the things I see in those videos. Like, it's funny because if you watch enough of these videos with your front mounted camera and you're hammering off the front, you can see just a little bit of like your head coming in, rocking back and forth. If you're trying to bridge a gap or trying to break away and hold it and the bike's rocking, that's when you're working really hard. That's so cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are times where I just go all in. And this year's 2016, 2015, we had for a little while, we had a really good group of guys. It was myself, Tony Wolf, Nick Baird, Chaz, and they were all really strong guys. Nick and Tony are Cat 1s, and Chaz is a Cat 2. He's a really strong climber. And we all worked really well together as a team and got some great results. And I would say that I had the most accomplished I would say I'd been on in cycling is getting like 40th place, but helping my team get top 5. And that's a lot of fun when you have a team to just destroy yourself on the front or bring stuff back or go on a breakaway. And if it gets brought back, no big deal because you played your part. That's a lot of fun. And
exactly.
And so, yeah.
What's the team you ride on?
So currently it's Michael David Winery, the team that all of those guys I just mentioned were on. They kind of shut down their race division, and Nick Baird and Tony went to Cortex. Chaz went to Muscle Milk Specialized, and so then I found a home at Michael David because I'm again nothing special, so I don't have a great sprint, I don't have any great results, and Chaz was a really good breakaway guy, great climber. Tony and Nick were great sprinters. So it's like, who wants me? Does anyone want me?
No, but I mean, you do make the races happen. I mean, there is something to be said for the guy who's like, I'm not going to let it come down to a field sprint. I want to make the race hard for the sprinters. Or, I mean, I think the way you break down races in a lot of your videos, tactician-wise, you play a really smart game because you play with whatever cards you kind of have. Like, just out of curiosity, what's like your 20-minute power?
So my best 20-minute power was 350 watts.
That's
which
really
I was,
good.
Which I was 165 pounds, like 163 pounds when I did that. So that was just underneath 5 watts per kilo. You know, I think it was like 4.9 or whatever it ended up being. And so
was that in a race or training?
Just in training.
Oh, wow.
Which was a bummer because when I hit that 350, I was peaking. And so then but there wasn't any races. There wasn't any races going on in the next like 2 weeks. It was sort of a lull. And so I hit this weird peak where I couldn't really show it off. And then so I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to go to the local group ride and just destroy everyone. And so I go out to the group ride, like boasting my new 5 watt per kilo, 20-minute power, and no one showed up. 0 people showed up on this ride that usually gets like 30 guys. I was so devastated. I was like, oh man, I have no way to show off this new, power. So hopefully my goal this year, or for 2017, is to, probably bump that by 10 to 15 watts. So yeah.
Well, how's your off season going? Are you doing anything different? Are you doing a lot of, long, slow distance? I know a lot of guys like they'll do a different sport or get in the weight room, or sometimes they just, mash a bigger gear in the winter. What do you normally do in the off season?
Ride. I think my Strava kind of shows that I bulk up my more hours. November, December, January, I do a lot more time on the road. This will be my first off season living kind of at elevation. So I live at about 3,500 feet, which isn't enough. It's not enough to give you a ton of adaptations, but there will be snow around where I live. So I don't know how much that's going to hinder me riding.
So you can't train higher than that. You're pretty much living at 3,500, but then if you go ride in the mountains, are you 1,000 or 2,000 feet above that?
So my number one climb that I like to do, Bayshore Road, goes from 3,500 to 7,200 feet. So it's just a straight, pretty much hour and 30-minute climb into the sky. So,
oh wow.
So yeah, all my training is done between 3,000 and 5,000 feet of elevation. But so this year I sort of, I did about 20 races. I raced a ton in the beginning of the year and sort of got burnt out. I did back-to-back stage races, Chico and Madera, and I was racing multiple times because in Northern California, you can, if you're a Cat 2, usually you can race Cat 2, 3, and then you can race P1, 2. So a lot of times I would race twice in the day, just to make the travel time worth it. If I drive 3 hours to a race, and then if your crit is 1 hour long, 6 hours of driving for 1 hour of racing, ugh.
Yeah, you always have to do that math. Is it for here? The races aren't that far apart, but it's just how long you're in traffic for. And if you can kind of come to terms with how long you're sitting in traffic for, then most people I know that go to crits, they just do more than at least 2, maybe sometimes 3, if it's depending on the time of year. But,
yeah, if you're a masters racer like 35 plus, there are races you could race 6 times in one day. But so I kind of burnt myself out at the beginning of the year, and then I kind of got sick. I have a 5-year-old son, and so when he goes to school, every kid at school coughs on him, and then he brings me back this, mutated disease. Like every year we'll get right as school starts. So I kind of got sick, and my power meter battery died, and I just didn't replace it, and I just kind of rode around for fun. I just didn't look at power. I didn't look at training programs. I just I rode when I wanted to, and didn't when I didn't want to. But now, I have that fire burning in me. I want to race so bad. I did a mountain bike race a couple weeks ago, which was a lot of fun. I tried to weasel my way into a cyclocross bike. But I haven't been able to do that yet. I want to do a lot of cyclocross racing, but so I'm hitting this off season pretty motivated, right? To start the year crushing it. So
do you coach yourself, or do you have a coach? Or
yeah, so Tony Wolf, he's my coach. He's my friend. I ride with him a lot. He works under Pinnacle Training Systems. So yeah, he's a legit coach. I mean, he knows a lot about the science of why you would want to do something versus if I coach myself, I say, what do I want to do today? Well, I don't know. Let's do intervals, or let's not do intervals, or let's hold some random, obscure amount of power. But what he does is he looks at where I am. He looks at the tests. He looks at my training scores on Training Peaks, and then tailors a pretty specific workout, which is a bummer though, because whenever I start to have a little bit of success and he's like, say, okay, go do 350 watts for 5 minutes, 5 times. And then I come back and I go, oh man, I did it. I checked that off. I did 351, 352, 349. I'm all excited. I have all this confidence. And then the next week it's like, dude, 360 for 10, for 5 minutes. It's like, no, wait. Like I just got my confidence for 350. I feel good. That was awesome. And then, and then he's making me overreach, which obviously is what you want to do. But yeah.
So for 2017, are you going to try and do a full NCNCA calendar, or not a full calendar, but as much of the big races as you can?
Yeah. I think it just kind of depends on my family and how all that stuff is working out. So I own 2 businesses. I am a web developer, and then I own a company that deals with data transfer between parts, manufacturers and dealers. It's like boring stuff. But so kind of depending on my workload, if I'm going to pack up the family and go racing a lot, so I don't know, 30 races, 40 races. It's probably realistically where I could land.
Yeah. Do you kind of ride? Do you not have a set work schedule where you can kind of ride when you need to, kind of thing?
Yeah, and I feel bad sometimes when I talk on YouTube about certain things and give advice and talk about training and that sort of thing, because my life's a fairy tale, right? I don't deserve anything in my life. It's insane. I've taken a lot of risks of being self-employed, but yeah, I can ride whenever I want, and that's huge. If you're the typical guy that has to do the 9 to 5 and you have a family, especially during the winter, when do you get to go out on the road? You might be able to ride Saturday, but maybe not because your kid has a soccer game. It's so easy for people to fall out of that training routine, because I don't know if this is like it for you, but if I ride every single day, my motivation to ride continues to stay strong. But if I take 2 days off, all of a sudden the potato chips are out, the ice cream's out, I'm on the couch, Netflix is on, I'm over it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, cyclists love consistency, but we also love to rest. And when we rest better than any couch potato there is. We can do just that just as good. So one of the things that I think a lot of people relate to, myself included, is that you're not this 20-year-old kid, up and comer, not married, no kids, no girlfriend, and you eat, sleep, and breathe cycling. Like, you definitely you show this in your videos, that you have such a really awesome kind of family life balance. And I remember one of your more recent videos, you had some other couples come in and talk about kind of their relationships. My wife doesn't ride, but she has been to just about every single race I've done. But how do you do that? I know some people, like their spouses, I've never even met them because they've never been to a race, and other ones I know them by first name because they're at every single race with the orange slices and whatever. So how do you kind of strike that balance?
Well, I just did a video where I talked about balance, and kind of the idea of it was that I don't have balance. Everything that anything that I'm proud of in my life has come from an unbalanced life. Now, like overall, if you zoom out in the whole year, it's well balanced. But to take your focus and drill it in on one thing at a time is so much more efficient, and then you can do that to all aspects of your life. So there are times where I focus really hard on cycling, and I'm on the road a lot, and I'm racing a lot, and everything else in my life suffers a little bit. And my family, they have to kind of take a backseat to some of those things, but then I will shift the focus and I will dedicate my time to, my wife and my son way more. I'll kind of stack it right towards that. And then there's times where I'm in the office till 3 a.m. Working, right? So I kind of shift around my focus so that I'm 100% involved or focused on what it is that I'm doing. Because your wife knows when you're not listening to her. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If she's talking about her nails or a show or whatever, and you're thinking about what you should have done in the breakaway, I think she knows, right? And my kid, he knows when he gets home from school and I'm not here because I'm out on a ride, and he wanted to go for a ride, that's like sucks. So, there are just times where I just try to laser in on exactly what it is that I want to get done, and I set these achievements. So you can say, here's a goal that I'm going to achieve. And when you achieve it, you feel good, right? You feel accomplished. Versus if you just tried to hold like a super balanced life across the board, Monday to Sunday, it is, I have this perfect routine, perfect schedule, and I'm going to divide my attention equally to everything. You just sort of are going to be mediocre at everything.
Yeah, you're just average at everything. You're not great at any one thing.
And so then looking for things that you've accomplished, it's very hard to do. You can look back and go, man, I've been so busy all week. What have I actually gotten done? Right? So to say, okay, on the bike, I'm going to hit 360 watts for 6 minutes 3 times. That's my goal, and I'm going to do it. And when you do it, you feel great. But then, so whatever it took you to do that goal, now it's accomplished, and now you can say, you know what, I'm gonna take my wife, my spouse, out to an amazing dinner. I'm gonna YouTube how to give great massages. I'm gonna put some nice music on, like whatever, right? You try to go 100%, whatever it is that you're doing, and for my life anyway, my wife seems to realize that and appreciate that. So I have more slack with her when I'm like, babe, I'm gonna go out and ride 5 hours, and I know I just went and raced Saturday. I know I raced Sunday. She'll go, okay, well, I'm gonna not allow is not the right word, because we have, but she sort of gives me that slack to go and do those things because I will return to her with 100% of my commitment.
Yeah. So instead of the stereotypical, like everything's got to be like even on a scale, it's almost like success is determined by like how fast you can focus and spin a plate. And then when that plate's kind of going, then you can spin another plate, or like whack-a-mole or something. You're just focused on that one thing right then and there. And then when you're done, you can focus on the next thing.
Yeah. I mean, for me, man, that works out perfectly. I think scientifically they've kind of shown that, multitasking is not as efficient. It might feel more efficient, but yeah. So, but again, my life is crazy. I have a lot of privileges that other people don't have. So to work a 9-to-5 job and to come home and then have to cook dinner or whatever. I mean, you're going to be kind of overwhelmed. I work from home. My wife's here, so we're with each other all the time. So on the weekend, going to races, she sort of looks forward to that. Like, even if she cares zero about the race, but it's like, oh, where is the race? San Jose? Cool. Let me Google what to do in San Jose, right? or whatever.
Yeah, and I love how sometimes when you talk to people, especially spouses, the first thing they go is like, "Did you win?" And you're like, "Huh? Why would that even like?" When winning is so rare sometimes in most of cyclists' lives, that's a tough thing to answer sometimes, because you want to break down the details of the race and all they want to know is what place you got. It's so humbling sometimes, especially when you're like, oh, I got 12th or 13th, and that's a good result, you know?
Yeah, and then trying to explain the intricacies of racing to my wife, who doesn't, doesn't ride at all. And so, she was like, how'd you do? And it's like, well, I got in a breakaway. I did really good. I put out a PR of power, and I covered all these moves. Well, but so did you win? Like, no. But that's not the whole story,
Yeah.
Like, I did really good.
I know, it's almost like if you're like a pro on a pro team, sometimes that's all the team cares about, like just your results. But you feel like you're compelled to explain everything about it and what happened. And sometimes, I don't know, it's just it kind of gets whittled down to that, which is kind of funny. I think most wives and girlfriends and spouses can kind of relate to that, which is amazing. So the other thing too is, man, I want to say I've been noticing a lot more people eating a plant-based diet. And I know you're vegan cyclist, so we kind of know where this is going, but how did it all kind of start out for you?
Yeah. So for one, it's really crazy. The Northern California Pro Peloton, the P12s, you're almost surrounded by people that would be a vegan cyclist, right? Like, I guess I'm the vegan cyclist on YouTube, but there's so many other vegan cyclists. It's sort of crazy to see how many people are going that way and kind of breaking that stereotype of, you have to eat a bacon-wrapped steak stuffed in a chicken to be strong. It's just, there are guys that are extremely, extremely strong and do it primarily on plants. But so for me, I feel like this is how everyone always says it is, well, I was a typical meat eater, and if I can do it and everyone can do it. But it's so, like, I was eating, I remember at one point it was bacon on everything. It didn't matter what it was, right? I mean, at one point it was like spaghetti, put bacon in it, like whatever it could be, pasta of any sort had to have bacon. And so when we decided to have my kid, my wife and I decided to have a child, we sort of were thinking, like, we're going to make this kid out of food, right? I mean, that's kind of what you do. You're creating a human out of the things you're putting in your body. Exactly. And so we're like, well, we should probably eat a little bit better, a little bit healthier. And so that was sort of just the tipping of, this journey of health. And so we got to the point where we were eating grass-fed beef and, locally farm-raised chicken and raw milk. I mean, all these things definitely not vegan, but, you look at them as healthier options than the factory farm stuff or whatever.
Or just more whole options.
Yeah, just different. I don't know, just kind of understanding where your food comes from. We watched a few documentaries, and I don't know. I mean, I never thought vegan. Most people, you hear the word vegan or you think of someone who's vegan and you just think of this dreadlock, hippie wearing no shoes, playing a guitar, telling you how horrible of a person you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It
And so
seems
I'm
like
well,
it used to be a polarizing term. And when you say that to people, it means you've almost even politically, like you've taken a side. And then therefore that person knows or presumes to know all about you. Like if somebody's like, well, who'd you vote for? And you're like, oh, I voted for Clinton or I voted for Trump. All of a sudden, that's all they need to know and they don't want to know anymore. And I feel like for some people, that's the same way about their food too.
100%. And that was something that I never realized was going to be an issue. Going vegan was, I looked at it as like a badge of honor. I was so proud to be called vegan. And then when I started talking about it, man, people just, they didn't even want to hear, they shut it down. They shut conversations down. You know, it was, they didn't want to be anywhere with me. But so for me, it was just always looking for how do I become better on the bike? How do I improve my health even further from where I'm at? And it's just these slow little steps. You know, by the time I decided to go plant-based, I'd already, you know, pretty much cut out red meat and was eating a lot of leaner meats, turkey and fish, eating a whole lot less meat and more vegetables. So like at that point, you just, it sort of was a natural deal. But it's, you know, I don't know, I watched like the wrong YouTube video and I came downstairs. So I woke up in the morning, I had bacon and eggs and yogurt. And then an hour later, I come downstairs from working and I tell my wife, I'm like, babe, I messed up. I watched the wrong YouTube video and I'm a vegan. And she's just like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I'm a vegan now. And so, you know, luckily she just was totally on board instantly. Just like, cool, let's do it. Now my wife and my son are not 100% because I don't want my son to look at this as like a taboo thing. And
yeah, I remember specifically a video you did where you were explaining in the video after your kid got ice cream. You're like, well, I don't want to make it so black and white that my kid can't enjoy like some ice cream and then end up resenting later on in life when they are going to make their own choices, which is such a smart thing to do when you're raising a child. It's so genius.
Right. And so I've gotten a lot of heat from the fact that my son is primarily plant-based. I mean, just people telling me they're going to call child services on me. How dare I do that to him?
They'll congratulate you.
Yeah, like just they get really angry about it. And I understand that kind of side of like, maybe you don't understand, and so you can just assume that he's saying, please give me bacon, and I'm yelling at him like, no, never. Like, that's not how it is at all. You know, I try to educate him within like a reasonable manner, but this is just with everything in his life. I try to let him make his own decisions, and sometimes he makes the wrong decision in my eyes. But he, you know, there's this quote of like Confucius said, and it's so funny that I say that, but you know, if you hear, you forget. If you see, you remember. If you do, you know. Right? So I can tell him everything and he's just going to forget it. I can show him like by example and he might remember that a little bit, might stick with him. But until he's the one that actually is doing it, like that's when he's going to, you know if it's for him or not. And so I don't know. There's been times where we've gone to like a kid's birthday party and they have pizza and he asks me, you know, what should I eat? And it's like, well, eat whatever you want. If you want the pizza, like go have the pizza. Like I'm not gonna. That's weird to pull you out of this. Like there's certain things that go beyond food, right? It's not just nutrition. It's like it's an experience. It's an environment. Thanksgiving, that's coming up soon, and you know that's hard because it is not just about what you're eating or what you're not eating. You're coming together with a whole family, and when you're not partaking in what they are partaking in, you're detached from that overall experience. And so, you know,
people can be made to feel less than, or I mean, if you look at just just the issue of meat. I mean, if you look at the way meat in, early humans brought cultures together and had them, paint caves and stuff like that. I mean, it was an integral part. And then beyond meat, just like food in general is so ingrained in people's culture. There's this really good book I read called Diet Cults, and it talks about basically every different diet that's out there, and not just what people are eating, but the reasons behind it. Some of them are religious, some of them are for health, but all of them have to do with the way it makes people feel. And that includes the social feeling as well, which is really important.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's why when the conversation is kind of started, people get very defensive because they think you're going to take away something. Like you're gonna pull something away from my life that I enjoy.
Yeah.
You're telling me that I can't have bacon. Like I'm not on board with that, right? Like that's happiness. That's happiness to me, or a cyclist, like chocolate milk, right? If you say, I can't have chocolate milk, but I think it's just, I don't know. I've tried to, and if you've watched my videos, I'm not really like that big of an activist on it. And if anyone's listening, their first instinct was, okay, this guy's just going to be a super annoying vegan and talk all about it. And I've just tried to steer away from that and let people see that it's possible that you could be a decent athlete. Because obviously, and this is how I was. How can you be vegan and get enough protein and enough nutrients to be an elite athlete? Like that's
exactly, and that's something that so many people, that's their go-to. Is like, where do you get your protein from, bro? Like that's the first thing that everybody talks about. If you are a vegetarian or vegan, they have this. There's this thing about protein, which is like this star micronutrient that, it's just it's kind of a ridiculous thing that people, that's their go-to argument, where you can get protein in so many different kinds of food, and not only meat. It's pretty hilarious.
Right, and I mean, there are some inherent downsides to a plant-based diet that I think a lot of people don't talk about, or the people that are vegan, once they go vegan, it's like, this is it. This is the way you have to be. Everyone else is horrible. But if you don't do it right, you are going to be malnutritioned, right? So if you eat Oreos and that's it, that's technically a vegan diet, right? Oreos are vegan. And so if you eat nothing but Oreos, you're a vegan. But that doesn't mean that's healthy. That's bad.
Exactly.
That's, your body's going to fall apart. And so if you don't have the time to put into it to understand how to get your essential amino acids or what foods to combine to make sure that you are, just topped off with nutrients, I don't know. I mean, maybe going 80% would be a better way, or 70%, and this is what I talk a lot about in my videos, is just do something. Everyone can do something to make a better change to their diet. I don't think it'd be very rare to find someone that said, I feel like my diet is impeccable. It's 100% on.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think we all know that we could make small changes and that we would see better results. But
yeah. And it's something that it doesn't have to be this swing of a pendulum. It could just, I mean, even something as simple as having someone be conscious about what they're eating. And you're not telling them what to eat, just like think about the food you're eating, be mindful of it. And all it takes is that little thing, and go, well, maybe I should put down the Coca-Cola and the Cheetos since I had that for the last 5 days in a row, and maybe just think about what I'm going to eat next. It could lead to those broader changes later down the line, which, there's something to be said for incrementalism, not just this all of a sudden drastic change. Humans love consistency, but humans can adapt to just about anything. We're really adaptable.
Well, your body will make changes when you introduce the proper foods. So, your gut biome, there's a lot of studies that have gone on to how you feed yourself and then what bacteria grows inside you right? So if you only eat candy corn and Diet Coke, like your body is really going to be very well suited to breaking that down. So when you eat a carrot, you might not even have the right biome inside you to break that down to get the full nutrients. And then your taste buds actually are kind of linked to that in a way of like what you crave. And so I know it's weird, but man, broccoli, I crave broccoli all the time. I love broccoli. I crave fruit. You know, if I don't have fruit for like 6 hours, I almost feel thirsty for fruit. It's it's a totally weird change to see it go throughout your body, but you know, for me it works perfectly. It is something that fits like a glove. It just it works really well for me. Other people, it might not work that well. It might not be something you want to go 100% into, because that pendulum you're talking about, if you go 100% in one direction, you might not be able to sustain it, and then you get this huge swing in the other direction. And that's with any diet, right? If you go on a low carb diet or a ketogenic diet or whatever it is, you know, if you starve yourself, you might see results for a little bit, but then all of a sudden you're just not sustainable, and then you know, you're gonna go shove your face into a bucket of ice cream to try to like gain that balance. But
yeah, exactly. I heard this great quote from Michael Pollan, and he basically broke it down really simply. It's just, he said, eat food, mostly plants, not too much. And if you kind of subscribe to that, then eventually you're on your way to just eating better, living better. And you know, I think everyone should try different types of diets, and vegan seems to work for you. How does it affect you on the bike when you're riding? What have you noticed physically, like when you're either in a race or a really long training day? How does that affect you?
Yeah, so the positive would be that my recovery is just through the roof. I mean, I recover really, really fast, even to the point of on the bike. I feel like I can respond to attacks, so many attacks. There was a Coppertown, a P12 race I did in Copper. No, I think it's Copper. It's like a circuit. It's like a circuit / road race. It's a circuit crit. Anyway, it's not Copperopolis, but it's Coppertown. It's really amazing. It's a little town that they tried to build and like no one came, so it's just beautiful roads and no one lives there. But so I wanted to make the break, and I think I went with maybe 25 moves, and it was just, you know, when you go all in to go on a move and then you get counterattacked, you know, usually you're just blown to pieces. But for whatever reason, that day was such a good example. I mean, I was just able to go with every single attack, and then I get into the move, and I'm so excited because this was like a legit, really awesome P12 race, and we're in the break, and I actually attacked the break a couple times. We had like half a lap to go. We were so close, and then Darren, he races for Cortex, his own team brought back the breakaway, and so it was like we had everyone represented. Like, all the teams were represented, and I was like, I made it, I did it, I'm guaranteed like a top 5 right now. And then the own teams brought back the break with, you know, a couple 100 meters to go. I was devastated, you know. But so yeah, like the ability to respond, the ability to recover, I feel really light, but I have to eat a ton. Right. So a lot of the food is like burnt so quickly that I can run into bonking if I'm not prepared right. And so there was one time I went on a group ride, and my group ride was it was me and my buddy, and we were going to do like a 1 hour light spin. And we ended up just connecting with these other people. It was a bigger group, and they had some fast guys, and they went and did like a 4.5 hour ride with a bunch of climbing. And everyone's just smashing, and I had no food on me. I mean, I just had like 2 water bottles. I had nothing on me. And so by the end of the ride, they're going, 16 miles an hour down the flats, and I'm getting dropped because I'm just cracked, right? I have nothing. I've completely bonked. We get to the rest stop, and then everyone's like, "Yeah, see, vegans are weak. I knew you would bonk," and I was like, "No, I just didn't have any food." It just was a bad situation. But that's something you have to think about a lot, because if you don't eat enough, and especially when you're on the bike, like in a race, I don't know. My wife makes me like little homemade muffins, or I do some potatoes, but like I have like a meal in my back,
Right. So I was going to ask you, like, take me through, say, you're not racing, but it's just a typical day of the week. Give me like a typical days of like when you wake up, what you eat for breakfast, kind of snacks, lunch, maybe more snacks, and then dinner. What's like a typical day look for you like?
Yeah. So I have a video where I ran through a week, Monday through Sunday, and it actually had, I think, 2 races or 3 races in that week. So if you want to see a video recap of that, check out the channel. But so
okay,
it changes all the time, just depending on what I feel like. But typically, I wouldn't even say typically. I was doing a lot of fruit in the morning. I'd do a ton of fruit, just wake up, eat bananas and grapes and strawberries and kiwis. But fruit right now is not totally in season. And so right now I'm doing hash browns with avocado and then like a smoothie, a super smoothie, some frozen blueberries and frozen bananas and mangoes, that sort of thing. So with chia seeds, so like some crazy big smoothie, and then hash browns with avocado. And the avocado, I'm just loving it. I don't know if like that extra fat, because being plant-based, you don't get a lot of fat. You're very low fat. And so that is giving me maybe longer sustainable energy, right?
And
so
does
maybe
it keep you fuller?
It does. It makes me feel full, versus if you just ate a bag of grapes, even though your stomach is full, you don't feel satisfied.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's like my sister, she tried to go vegan, and she's just like, I never feel satisfied. And it's like, yeah, you got to just sort of find things. But so, okay, in the morning, right now, I'm doing hash browns, avocado, super smoothie. During lunch, I kind of just snack from, say, 10 to 2 on fruit and nuts. So pistachios or almonds, cashews. I'll do some white rice maybe sometimes. And then I go out for a ride around 2 o'clock. And depending on how big the ride is, I may not eat anything on the ride. I just come home. I drink a hemp protein shake from Cranked Naturals. So hemp, it has a full amino acid profile. So as like a protein shake, that's just good for me. So I mix that in with almond chocolate milk. So it's like that cyclist chocolate
really
milk.
Good.
It's amazing. It's really, really delicious, and I can instantly feel like recovered. My legs feel good right after that drink. And then we do dinner. So tonight we did like a kind of a Chinese type thing. So we had edamame, rice, it's like peas and broccoli and potatoes. Pretty much every night we do potatoes in some sort of fashion. And then I ate some ice cream, like nice cream, whatever you would call it. It's not dairy, non-dairy ice cream. So I had like half a carton, of that. But so
you got to have that. It is the off season. Who does most of the cooking? Is it you or your wife?
She would call me the sous chef, I guess, but we're pretty equal, So she definitely bakes, but I mean, dude, I cook a mean meal. And you have to, I think, when you become plant-based, because especially where I live in the mountains, I don't have a vegan restaurant anywhere near me, right? So I got to cook everything pretty much all the time. Like, we're always cooking our own food. And so, like you said, Michael Pollan, he said eat whatever you want, just cook it yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you want a bacon cheeseburger, cook it yourself. If you want a pepperoni pizza, cook it yourself. And that will show you just how hard it is, for one, to make these things. And then most likely you're going to make it exactly the way you want it. And it's going to taste way more amazing. And then you sort of see how much goes into it, especially if you're baking. The amount of sugar sometimes, if you eat a cupcake or a muffin, you're like, okay, a muffin is a great example. We as a society go, muffins equal healthy. And it's like, if you took the ingredients of a cupcake and the ingredients of a muffin, they're the same. It's like the same stuff, man. It's not, it's like cake. One has fruit. Yeah, it's cake. So when you do it yourself, you start to realize like, wow, that's a lot of sugar. And then maybe you go, I guess I don't necessarily need all of that. But yeah.
So it sounds to me like you are one of those people where if you take on any given type of topic, whether it's cycling or making YouTube videos or your family or food, you seem to go kind of full bore into it. Have you always had that kind of personality, or is it something that you've learned to do over time?
I don't know. I guess it kind of goes back to the balance thing. I like to focus in on stuff. And just kind of, so my learning curve seems to be, I learn really, really quickly and then just taper off. And I can never reach that next level on really anything, right? So I did jiu-jitsu for a really long time. I was a Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor to kids and adults. Mm-hmm. I was really, really good to a certain level, and then just kind of that was it, and same thing with cycling.
So were you like a cat too as a jiu-jitsu, or what is it? Maybe brown belt or purple belt or something like that? I don't know it too well.
Right. So I got to be a purple belt under Hoist Gracie. Hoist Gracie himself had to give me my belts, which is, if you know anything about MMA or that, like he is, the Gracie family created jiu-jitsu. So,
right.
So yeah, I mean, that was an amazing experience to do that because, so before that, I owned a motorcycle shop and sold dirt bike and street bike apparel, and I just was living the American dream. I had this huge truck and raced motorcycles all the time, just living the dream. And then the economy collapsed and I lost everything. I mean, I lost my truck, I lost my toy hauler, all my bikes. I mean, I was like in a foreclosed home, just, selling like random stuff on eBay to try to get by. And, man, that humbles you. Like, it humbles you so much when you think you have everything going on, when you think you got it all figured out, and it's just taken away from you so quickly. But that was an experience.
Like you don't want to go back to that, so therefore everything you've done since that point, you've gone all into it.
Yeah, so trying to be a little bit smarter on what I invest my time into, just like training, right? You want to train smarter, not harder. You could go out on the road and drill yourself into the ground for 5 hours every day, and that's not going to give you better results than a well-structured, well-thought-out plan. So trying to do things that my investment into them will pay greater dividends with less risk. But again, man, like, that makes me sound like some amazing business entrepreneur person. Like, I'm not. Like, I don't really have any amazing accomplishments. I guess my biggest accomplishment would be that I'm able to successfully work from home legitimately, with some kind of stability, and be a father to my son, and be a husband to my wife, and be able to be healthy. to the best of my ability. You know what I mean? So I guess that would be my
I'd say that's success. I mean, I don't know. Like, I was in Indonesia a couple years ago, and I stayed in this tiny village, and I was talking to one of the locals, and I asked this lady about her kids, and she's like, "Oh, these are my kids, and this is my new baby, and she's, a few months old." And I was like, "Oh man, that's amazing." And she looked at me and she was like, "Yeah, I'm rich." And I kind of giggled, like she was being sarcastic, but that's their definition of rich. So I guess the way that we see success in this country, it has a pretty diverse, varied definition. And I think you're pretty successful. I mean, you're reaching so many people, and you're able to kind of do the things you love to do and do them well. So what's kind of in store for the future for Vegan Cyclist?
Just kind of, I don't know, keep going on that as I see fit, really. I mean, it's a lot of fun right now. Honestly, I wish I had more views. I wish that I was could have more of a monetary gain from YouTube, so that I could invest more time into it, because it's a little bit hard to justify the amount of time I put into the videos. But there's a level of reward that is given to creating something, right? And that again, It goes back to having accomplishments. When you just are punching on the keyboard or working all day, and there's very few times where you get to sit back and like look at something you've accomplished. And whenever I create a video, that's like a new thing I've gifted to the world. And I know that sounds
a measurable product. If you train hard, say for a week, by the end of that week, you've noticed measurable gains. If a lot of people do a really good job at work, maybe their boss notices, maybe they don't. It's much more hard to quantify. And then with these videos, you've got a product that you can look back at and be proud of, which is really, really cool. I mean, I look at your videos, Tyler, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's backing his car out and he's leaving, but he left his camera, so does he have to like stop the car, go get the camera, turn it off, and then jump back in the car? Like, I always wonder for some of the shots that you have that shows you like walking, but then the camera's off somewhere. I'm like, oh, someone had to put the camera there. So, yeah. But they turn out so cool, though.
So I have a video where I went hiking with, I think it's called like The Important Things or something. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the video, I put in the clips of me running back to the camera, running back to get it, because it was, just a ton of shots. But and anytime I go with, my friends or riding buddies, they know the drill. It's like, okay, we go to the top of the climb, but now we got to stop. We got to go back down a little bit. I got to set up the camera. We got to ride past the camera like everything's cool.
Yeah.
It's an ordeal for sure. But again, there's something that I sort of made a Kratos when I created this YouTube channel, was that monetary gain was not a goal. Views were not a goal. Those are not my metrics for success. My main goal was to have a library of footage that my son could look back on if anything was to happen to me before me and him really got to have a serious relationship. And so, that is something that kind of underliningly gives me the feeling of accomplishment. Every time I upload a video, it's something that people will remember me by. Right. And I think that we all want that, like a life after death type thing.
Yeah.
And
have a legacy.
Not to be like morbid about it, but as long as the YouTube servers are up and running, a part of me kind of lives on. And, there's something so amazing to have this experience of when I go somewhere and someone recognizes me, and me and that person, we're no different. Right, I'm not Phil Gaiman, where I am some immortal on the bike, right? And when he meets other people, no matter how humble he can be, there's sort of this like, he knows he's in another level, like he's on another tier, right? Don't mean that in a bad way at all. But when I meet the people who recognize me, we are the same, and it's this really cool connection, and they feel that they can talk to me, and I feel like really appreciative of them, and it's just so amazing. And there's like a thought that I've been playing with, which is like happiness is an enemy of success, right? When you are not happy, you try to find happiness through whatever means that is to you. And a lot of times we look at that as monetary gain, possessions, materialistic things. But I legitimately am 100% happy. Like my life is, again, a fairy tale. And so since I have like a true happiness, sometimes I don't maybe work as hard or strive to hit those measurements of success, because I've sort of, as long as I can keep my current life status quo, man, I couldn't really ask for more. I guess I could have a nicer car, or my bar tape could be better, but like that's not going to make me happier. And so
it's more maintenance than happiness.
Right. And so right now, the relationship with my son, the relationship with my wife, the relationship with my business and YouTube and my health, I mean, like in terms of training, I'm peaking hard, So I just don't, I don't know. I think that if that wasn't the case, maybe I would be a better cyclist. Maybe I would train harder, or I would leave more of it out on the race, when I go out there. I mean, I definitely try hard, but if I didn't know that I was going to come home and just be utterly loved by my son and my wife, that's sort of a bailout for me, right? Like, I'm hurting on this climb. I'm about to get dropped. I'm suffering. And it's like, I don't know. I'm going to go home and be really happy.
Yeah. You have something to come home to, and I think that's something that people can really look at, and I think it's a great note to kind of go out on. Tyler, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to cover before we go?
Well, when you messaged me, you said one thing you wanted to talk about was the difference between SoCal and NorCal, and I don't know, like you have more expertise with SoCal, but what I see is that all those guys are like 180 pounds. Like they're all so beefy and everything's so sprinty, versus NorCal guys, everyone is like 100 pounds. Everyone looks like Chris Froome, right? Why do you think that is? Or is that just my perception? It's not really true.
No, I think you're right. Like, definitely more beefy, a lot more tattoos down here. I don't know. I think it's a culture of because there are a lot of crits, it breeds that kind of racer. And I think if there were more road races, because we do have some road races here, if there were more road races here, you would get kind of the Froome-like guys to show up more, because there are guys who are super strong that won't even bother doing a crit because they just know they can't produce 1,800 watts like Sharon Smith can, or some of the other, like, as they're called, pro masters racers, and they can just do that and they'll win all day every day. And it's a weird physical thing. I remember I took a break from the sport and came back in 2011 and did my first crit down here. And I'm like, wow, where'd all these tattooed guys come from? It was just this culture shock. So you're definitely right in thinking that. I don't know. It's just one of those kind of weird differences that I wish cycling would feature maybe more road races down in Southern California and cater to a more diverse crowd, not just necessarily the guy sprinting and putting out just crazy power. But I don't know. We'll have to investigate that more, Tyler. So how can people find you online or on social media, and definitely your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so definitely YouTube, The Vegan Cyclist. I've got a bunch of YouTube videos there, and I promise they're not super preachy. I even had a guy comment today, and he said, "Man, I didn't watch you for the longest time because of your name. I just thought you were going to yell at me, but once I saw your stuff, I really, really liked it. And so anyway, so I got the YouTube, Instagram, The Vegan Cyclist on Instagram, and then Facebook, same thing, The Vegan Cyclist. Okay, so, great. Man, I really appreciate you having me on, and I hope that I can add something to your awesome library of amazing people. I hope I can fit in here and I'm not stick out like a sore thumb. And so,
awesome. No, this was fantastic. Also, I just really want to talk about something kind of near and dear to both of us. And my buddy Ryan Cady runs a clothing company called LEL, which is right down the street from me. And they did a really cool kit for you, the Vegan Cyclist kit. And how can people get a hold of that?
Yeah, so that kit came out amazing. It's a phenomenal kit. We've only done 2 pre-orders, and so they're only open for like 10 days at a time. So right now you can't get a hold of it, but we will. So if you follow me on social media or you follow, I always butcher their name. I call them Allele. But if you follow them, you'll see when it's opened up again. But they are talking about doing a fruit collection that is not vegan branded. So a lot of people were saying, "Wow, this kit's amazing, but I'm not vegan.
Right?
How do I get a hold of this kit that doesn't say vegan all over it?" And so they're going to make one that's a fruit collection, like vest, arm warmers, kit. The whole deal looks beautiful. It's black with like a fruit print on the arm and the leg, and that will be open all the time. And I think the beginning of 2017 that will be open. But yeah, man, Derek over there is just fantastic. I mean, those guys are amazing. Those kits are just next level stuff. I love them, and the kit they designed for me, I couldn't have asked for a better experience. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I don't know, either if you're down here or I'm up there, we're going to have to eat some really good food together.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, yeah.
Tyler Pierce, a.k.a. Vegan Cyclist. Awesome to chat with him. Definitely go to his videos. Heed some of his advice because it's kind of no-nonsense advice. He's somebody that is super straightforward when it comes to his videos. And, the whole craze, John, of people mounting cameras to their bikes in bike races, he didn't start it, but he's definitely bringing it to probably non-cyclists going, "Oh, let me check this out." Yep. Down here we have, he's known as nation's #1 beast.
Yes.
Is it Corey Williams?
It's Corey.
And he's got one mounted on his head, one mounted on his handlebars, throws in some really cool music. Yep. And it's also good when he's like winning the races also.
Well, think about the entertainment value and how much you can learn from it. Bahati was actually really, I don't know if you've ever seen Rasan's when he kind of breaks down the race and how
Manhattan Beach Grand Prix.
Yep. So I think Rasan kind of started that, and of course he rides and is very close with Corey and Justin and CJ and the whole Williams family, and they do a great job. Justin always has a camera on board as well, but you learn a lot watching those guys race, and I think just anybody can gain something from it, whether you race or it's just from an entertainment value and you just want to see what's happening in these quote crazy criteria.
Yeah,
right?
Because when you watch the video, the non-cycling friends of yours will be like, "Wow, you guys are so close to each other."
Yeah.
And it's cool, and it's just, it's a piece of technology that people use. At first, it's kind of ugly because you're like, "What's this helmet cam?" But then after a while, it's just part of the peloton.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this. Right, if you want to check out the 3 videos that I've posted while you were listening, that will all be in the description, and I hope that I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any suggestions on what I could do better, maybe next time, I really want to get better at podcasting. I'd like to be a guest on more podcasts. So yeah, check out the Socal Cyclist Podcast with Brian. Man, good stuff. Really appreciate it. Thank you for all the support. As always, guys, Vegan Cyclist. Yeah.